I did a surgical pathology fellowship at Hartford Hospital in Connecticut. I did a forensic pathology fellowship in the Office of the Medical Investigator in New Mexico, and then I came here to Clark County. I have a medical license to practice here in the state of Nevada, and I'm board certified in anatomic pathology and forensic pathology.
How long overall have you been a forensic pathologist?
This September it'll be about 17 years practicing here.
So I'm going to guess that 30 years ago you were not at the autopsy of Tupac Shakur.
No, I was in medical school.
Have you in the past had to come in and testify to your opinions as to cause and manner of death in cases where you weren't the actual examiner at the table?
Yes.
Explain why that would happen.
We have people that have retired. We have doctors that have died. We have doctors that have gone to other locations.
His injuries, and I'm going to start with, well, I'll start with 49. What are we looking at here?
This is the right side of the body up by the chest area. You can see the right axilla or armpit in that region. And then you could see some of the sutures of what they call a thoracotomy incision, where they've cut into the side of the chest. And then just below that, this is an entrance gunshot wound.
And then just below that thoracotomy chest, there appears to be a stitched up area. I can move my mouse too, right there. What is that?
That's a sutured chest tube site.
So he had a tube there to help drain
thigh.
Some of what was going on, and
then his backside of his right hand is also within this picture.
The ruler, though, is identifying what?
The ruler is around the right lateral aspect of his thigh, so the right thigh on the lateral side.
And what is that?
And that's an entrance gunshot wound.
And can you tell me the path that bullet took?
Yes.
And go ahead.
That bullet entered in the lateral aspect of the right thigh and then went upwards into the abdomen and damaged his intestines. They ended up operating there and removed a portion of his intestines, and then during that surgery they recovered another projectile.
State's exhibit number 52, and you can see it in 51, but now the ruler.
The testimony. Pay close attention to what is happening here, because this is not simply a doctor describing medical records. The witness you're about to hear is a forensic pathologist, and her testimony is being used to explain exactly what happened to Tupac Shakur after he suffered the fatal shooting. But there's an important detail right from the beginning. Dr. Lisa Gavin was not the original examiner who performed the autopsy. The original examiner, Dr. Jordan, had passed away, meaning Gavin had to review the existing evidence, records, photographs, autopsy report, investigation materials, and medical documentation before forming her own conclusions. That's a major distinction in courtroom testimony, because the credibility of an expert doesn't just come from their title. It comes from their training, the material they reviewed, and how clearly they can explain their conclusions. And as this testimony develops, we're going to hear exactly how the wounds affected Shakur's body, where the bullets traveled, what medical teams attempted to do to save him, and ultimately what the medical examiner determined was the cause and manner of death. So listen closely, because some of the most important evidence comes from details that might sound technical at first, but those details become critical when the witness reaches her final conclusion.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated. May I please have you state and spell your first and last name for the record?
Good morning. I'm Dr. Lisa Gavin, Lisagavin.
Thank you, Dr. Gavin. Mr. DiGiacomo, you may proceed.
Doctor, how are you employed?
I am a forensic pathologist, medical examiner here in Clark County.
What does that mean you do for a living?
We determine the cause of death and the manner of death and sudden unexpected deaths.
And in order to hold the position that you do with the coroner's office, do you have certain education, training, and background?
Yes.
And explain that to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I went to medical school at the University of Connecticut School of Medicine. I did a pathology residency at Hartford Hospital in Connecticut. I did a surgical pathology fellowship at Hartford Hospital in Connecticut. I did a forensic pathology fellowship in the Office of the Medical Investigator in New Mexico, and then I came here to Clark County. I have a medical license to practice here in the state of Nevada, and I'm board certified in anatomic pathology and forensic pathology.
How long overall have you been a forensic pathologist?
This September it'll be about 17 years practicing here.
So I'm going to guess that 30 years ago you were not at the autopsy of Tupac Shakur.
No, I was in medical school.
Have you in the past had to come in and testify to your opinions as to cause and manner of death in cases where you weren't the actual examiner at the table?
Yes.
Explain why that would happen.
We have people that have retired. We have doctors that have died. We have doctors that have gone to other locations in the country.
So when you are asked to review, what is it that you get to review in order to form your opinions and conclusions?
Most often it would be the investigation report from our office. It would be the autopsy report from the forensic pathologist that did the case. It could be photographs associated with the case. Could be medical records associated with the case. Could be any consultations or the like associated with the case.
In this particular case, do you know who the examiner was?
Yes.
Who was it?
It was Dr. Jordan.
And Dr. Jordan is no longer with us, correct?
Correct. Dr. Jordan has passed away.
In addition to what the medical examiner's office had, did you also get a copy of the photographs taken by crime scene analysts during the course of the autopsy?
Yes.
And
This is where the foundation of the medical testimony becomes especially important. Dr. Gavin is explaining that she didn't simply look at one photograph and make a conclusion. She reviewed the investigation report, the original autopsy report, photographs, medical records, consultations, and other materials connected to the case. That's significant because forensic pathology often requires reconstructing what happened from multiple pieces of evidence, particularly when the original examiner is no longer available to testify. Here, Dr. Gavin identifies Dr. Jordan as the original examiner and confirms that he had passed away. So the court is hearing her interpretation of an existing forensic record rather than watching the person who originally performed the autopsy explain it firsthand. The photographs become especially important because they allow her to examine the physical findings herself. What do you think matters more in a case like this? The doctor's credentials, the original records, or the physical evidence shown in those records? Keep that question in mind, because the testimony is about to move from credentials and documentation into the actual injuries.
And did you utilize those as well to render your opinions?
Yes.
I'm going to start with what's been previously admitted as State's Exhibit number 44. Now, as long as you don't click that mouse, there should be a nice little arrow that comes up and you can point to it. What are we looking at in State's Exhibit 44?
In the background is a green body bag, and the way that we sealed the body bag to preserve the body as evidence is we put this little blue tag through the eyelets of the zippers as they come together to demonstrate that the body was received, placed into that sealed body bag, and then received in the office with that seal intact at that time. Similarly, we also attached onto that area what will become the toe tag, the identifying marker for that particular body, that particular individual.
And if I zoom in on that, we're able to see that the name was Lassane Crooks, aka Tupac Shakur, date of death 9/13/96 at approximately 1600 or 4 p.m.
That's correct.
45. What are we looking at, doctor?
This is just opening up of the body bag, and then one of the first photos that was taken at the time that the body bag was opened, demonstrating the decedent and the condition that he was received in the body bag.
And from reviewing the medical records that were part of the coroner's office file, did it appear that Mr. Shakur had survived his wounds for some period of time?
Yes.
And a lot of what we see on these photographs are evidence of medical intervention?
That's correct.
046. This is a facial shot. I know there's a ruler in the way, but this is a facial shot of Mr. Shakur.
Oh, that's correct.
And then we're not going to display all of his tattoos, but there were photographs taken, this is 47, to identify his various tattoos.
Correct.
So we can see on his right stomach there that says thug. And then if we go to 48, on the other side it says life. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So now I want to get to his injuries, and I'm going to start with, well, I'll start with 49. What are we looking at here?
This is the right side of the body up by the chest area. You can see the right axilla or armpit in that region. And then you could see some of the sutures of what they call a thoracotomy incision, where they've cut into the side of the chest. And then just below that, this is an entrance gunshot wound.
And then just below that thoracotomy chest, there appears to be a stitched up area. I can move my mouse too, right there. What is that?
That's a sutured chest tube site.
So he had a tube there to help drain some of what was going on in his body.
Correct. And in the previous one that had all the medical intervention, you could see from the left side there was a similar chest tube on that left side.
From your review, were you able to determine sort of the path of this particular bullet?
Yes.
And what was that?
It entered here in the right lateral aspect of the chest, just below the axilla, the armpit, and then went across the right chest space, went across the right lung, and then ended up coming to rest in what we call the sternal notch. The sternal notch is a location just between where your collarbones kind of meet up towards the center of your chest. So just beneath that, the projectile was recovered.
Now we're getting into the medical evidence that explains why these wounds were so devastating. The doctor describes a bullet entering the right side of the chest, traveling across the chest space and through the right lung before coming to rest near the sternal notch. That's not just a location on a diagram. It helps explain the physical consequences of the injury. According to the testimony, the lung was damaged badly enough to collapse and bleed, and medical records documented approximately 2 liters of blood in the chest cavity when a chest tube was placed. Doctors then took extraordinary measures in an attempt to control the bleeding, including removing the damaged lung. The testimony also describes repeated periods where Shakur became unresponsive and was unable to breathe normally. So when you hear the final medical conclusion later, remember these details. The path of the projectile, the lung damage, the internal bleeding, and the emergency medical intervention all help establish the seriousness of the injuries. At this point, the evidence is moving from photographs to a medical reconstruction of what happened inside the body.
The nature of that type of wound, what did it physically do to him, his ability to breathe and those types of things?
The injury to the lung would have collapsed the lung and also caused the lung to bleed. And so it was documented within the medical records that he had about 2 liters of blood in his chest cavity when they put in the chest tube to try to save him. And similarly, they ended up removing that lung to try to save him and kind of clamp off the bleeding. And then he already had multiple episodes of not becoming responsive, so he wasn't able to breathe. He was bleeding out in that area from that injury.
Additionally, I guess I should have asked this when I was back on some of the prior pictures. We're going to see a lot of pictures, or we have seen some pictures of Mr. Shakur while he's alive. We're going to see some video of him alive. He certainly looks a lot skinnier in those pictures than he does in these pictures. Is there a reason why he's so bloated in these photographs?
After they've been on the life support system, you end up not being able to circulate the fluid in the body that they're trying to give you, and so it kind of seeps into the tissues, and it makes your tissues look kind of bloated and literally bloated.
I'm going to move on to his next wound, State's Exhibit number 51. What are we looking at here?
This is the right lateral aspect of his body, so his right flank and his lateral aspect of his right thigh. And then his backside of his right hand is also within this picture.
The ruler, though, is identifying what?
The ruler is around the right lateral aspect of his thigh, so the right thigh on the lateral side.
And what is that?
And that's an entrance gunshot wound.
And can you tell me the path that bullet took?
Yes.
And go ahead.
That bullet entered in the lateral aspect of the right thigh and then went upwards into the abdomen and damaged his
Here's another
intestine.
major piece of the forensic puzzle. The doctor is now describing a separate gunshot wound that entered through the lateral portion of the right thigh and traveled upward into the abdomen, damaging the intestines. The medical team had to operate and remove a portion of the intestines, and another projectile was recovered during that surgery. That matters because we're no longer talking about one isolated injury. The testimony is establishing multiple wounds and tracing what those wounds physically did. Notice how methodical the questioning is. Where did the projectile enter? What direction did it travel? What organs were damaged? And what treatment was required? Those details allow the jury to understand the difference between simply saying someone suffered gunshot wounds and actually explaining the medical consequences of those wounds. There's also testimony about another wound that did not penetrate the body, possibly involving a projectile that had already lost momentum. Which detail stands out to you most so far? The chest injury, the abdominal damage, or the evidence recovered during surgery?
And damaged his intestines. They ended up operating there and removed a portion of his intestines, and then during that surgery they recovered another projectile.
State's Exhibit number 52, and you can see it in 51, but now the ruler is on. Oops, try that again. Now the ruler is on that lower mark. Describe that for us.
This is like the lateral aspect of his body, or his right flank. And this wound does not penetrate into the body, but it kind of causes this deeper abrasion in this area. So this could be from like a spent projectile that might have hit something else and then hit his body, so it lost its momentum to be able to penetrate into his body further. So it kind of hit this area and created this wound on the side of his body.
Were there evidence within the medical records that Mr. Shakur had received bullet wounds sometime prior to the injuries that caused his death?
He had some scars in other areas of his body that were suggestive of that.
State's Exhibit number 53. What are we looking at?
This is the back of his right hand, and on the ring finger he has an entrance gunshot wound. This path goes through the hand and goes through that finger and then fractures that bone right by the ring finger area.
And then 54054. What are we looking at?
This is the exit aspect of that wound that we saw the entrance to on the back of the hand, and it kind of exits out the underside and partly in the webbing between those fingers.
Now you mentioned that during the surgery, UMC would have recovered one bullet, and then autopsy, another bullet was recovered?
That's correct.
And so, as it relates to the autopsy, showing you State's Exhibit number 55. What are we looking at here?
This is the projectile that was recovered during the autopsy. This was the one underneath the sternal notch to which I referred earlier.
And
At this point, the testimony is also establishing how physical evidence was documented and preserved. The projectile recovered during the autopsy is being identified through photographs taken from multiple angles, and the witness connects it to the earlier described wound beneath the sternal notch. That kind of documentation is important in forensic work because evidence has to be identified, recorded, and connected to the larger medical examination. The doctor has also testified about the hand injury, the path of that projectile, and the resulting fracture. Then we hear that additional records were available, including medical records, photographs, the autopsy report, the investigation report, and toxicology information. The court is essentially being shown that the final opinion wasn't pulled out of thin air. It came after reviewing a collection of evidence. And now we're approaching the moment that matters most. After reviewing all of these records and findings, what does this expert actually conclude caused Tupac Shakur's death? And how does she classify the manner of that death?
And just so the jury understands these when they get the back room, that's the same bullet, it's just taken from the opposite side.
Yes, we take multiple angles of those projectiles, photos of multiple angles.
Your Honor, just for the record, what exhibit number is this one?
Mr. Giacchino?
56.
Okay.
Doctor, in addition to not only the photographs, were there other records identifying Mr. Shakur within the coroner's office records?
We have both some medical records and some photographs, as well as the autopsy report, the investigation report, and the toxicology report as well.
Did you also have an affidavit from Mr. Shakur's mother indicating that's her son and he's dead?
Yes.
And were there also post-mortem fingerprints taken to confirm that information?
Yes.
This is the moment where everything we've heard begins to come together. The witness has already described the chest wound, the lung damage, the internal bleeding, the abdominal injury, the intestinal damage, the medical interventions, and the projectiles recovered during treatment and autopsy. Now the attorney asks the question that all of that evidence has been building toward. Does Dr. Gavin have an opinion about the cause of death? She says yes. And when asked to state that opinion, she identifies gunshot wounds to the chest and abdomen as the cause of death. Then comes an equally important forensic classification, the manner of death. She identifies it as homicide. Notice the wording, though. The attorney immediately asks what homicide means in the medical examiner's terminology. That's important because a forensic classification is not necessarily the same thing as a criminal conviction or a legal finding of guilt against a particular person. The witness is explaining the medical classification of how the death occurred. The next answer makes that distinction very clear.
After reviewing all of those records, do you have an opinion as to the cause of death of Mr. Shakur?
Yes.
And what is that?
He died of gunshot wounds of chest and abdomen.
And do you have an opinion as to the manner of death?
Yes.
And what is that?
Homicide.
When a medical examiner uses the term homicide, what does that mean?
The simplest form is death at the hands of another.
Thank you. I pass the witness.
And that's where this testimony ultimately lands. Dr. Lisa Gavin, a forensic pathologist with extensive training and years of experience, reviewed the available medical and forensic materials connected to Tupac Shakur's death. She explained that the original examiner, Dr. Jordan, was no longer available because he had passed away, so she relied on the existing investigation, autopsy documentation, photographs, medical records, and related evidence to form her opinion. The testimony described multiple gunshot wounds, including devastating injuries to the chest and abdomen. One projectile traveled through the chest and damaged the lung, while another entered through the thigh and caused serious abdominal injuries. Medical teams attempted emergency treatment, including chest tubes, surgery, and removal of the damaged lung, but the injuries proved fatal. The final medical opinion was direct. The cause of death was gunshot wounds to the chest and abdomen, and the manner of death was classified as homicide. One important legal point is that this testimony establishes the medical examiner's classification. It does not, by itself, identify a criminal defendant or establish criminal guilt. That distinction matters when evaluating courtroom evidence. So after hearing all of this, what do you think was the most important piece of testimony? The forensic reconstruction, the recovered projectiles, the medical records, or the final cause and manner of death opinion? If you found this case as shocking as we did, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom breakdowns.